Right, so the Labour Party National Executive Committee imposing candidates on local constituency parties in this general election, rather than letting them select their own candidates, has very much been a defining aspect of Keir Starmer's authoritarianism leading up to the election. He only wanted people who seemingly won't question him in power, people from his faction installed and blow to what local people might want, might need in a representative, let alone when it comes to actual representation by someone who knows their areas and puts their local needs first. Where some of the more well-known impositions of this election might be the replacement of Jeremy Corbyn with a multimillionaire private healthcare CEO, or members of that Labour NEC awarding themselves safe seats where they have no local connection, all for the sake of becoming MPs, not caring one iota about where they are supposed to represent, like Luke Akehurst as an example, have caused considerable anger. But another less known example, but a no less disgusting imposition, has really shown exactly how poor some Labour parliamentary candidates are. And you really have to see this to believe it.
No, we just wonder why.
So would you like to make a statement about Israel's genocide in Gaza? Do you want to condemn the genocide?
Other than that, I support. Other than that, I want an immediate ceasefire. Support that. I've said that many times.
What about the genocide?
I've said that many times.
Do you want to condemn Israel? 17,000 children killed?
I don't want to have a conversation with you about this like this. We've already had this many times.
I've never heard you personally. I've never spoken to you personally.
Fine, okay. Well, I don't particularly like you standing here videoing me either. So if you want to have a conversation, we'll have it calmly and politely.
What about arms exports to Israel?
I don't think offensive weapons should be sold to Israel, no.
Do you think we should introduce an immediate sanctions?
No.
Why?
Because I don't.
Why?
I just said
the UN has just yesterday. The UN made a report. The UN just published a report saying arms companies currently supplying Israel arms to Israel could be complicit in war crimes, and they need to be warned that they could well be held up in international courts. So you support the export of arms?
So I just said I don't support the offensive weapons.
One of the companies that's currently listed, the 20 or 30 companies, arms companies, that are currently listed as being possibly complicit in war crimes, is the L3 Harris factory in Moulsecoomb.
So that got blocked by the council, right? So that's not happening.
Well, no, they're still making the parts for F-35 jets. The bomb. Do you know what they make up there?
Yeah, well, it's been blocked. It's not going to happen.
No, do you know what they make?
I know it's arms.
Do you know what they make?
No.
So you're standing as an MP in Brighton. You don't know what the arms factory.
They're not making. The arms factory is not making. It's not making those. So
it's not making what?
It's been blocked by the council.
What has?
It didn't get planning permission from the council.
What didn't?
It didn't get permission from them to carry on. But look, I don't want to.
Do you know what the arms factory in our city currently makes?
Not specifically, no. We'll go in. But if you...
So there's an arms company in our city, and you don't know what they make. They make the bomb release cradles for F-35 jets currently bombing Gaza.
Come in. We've just been asked to move.
You need to educate yourself.
That's convenient for you, isn't it?
Right, so that was Chris Ward, the Starmer imposition on Brighton, Kemptown and Peacehaven. And if you might have been wondering perhaps why the Green Party is doing so well this time around in various seats, not least this one, frankly no wonder no more. He couldn't detest being questioned by a local person more if he tried, could he? He was really annoyed. That's the first impression you get. He didn't want to make a statement on Israel and Gaza. He was quite sulky about that, I thought. He was quite sulky about being filmed, I thought, as well. It was the Brighton and Hove Palestine Solidarity campaign who were doing the filming and asking the questions, incidentally. Hence the Palestine flag seen there. They weren't with Chris Ward. But Ward himself, well, get used to being filmed and questioned like that if you want to be an MP, frankly. But he eventually managed to sutter out that he supported a ceasefire. Now, Starmer supports one now, of course. He doesn't think there should be arms sales to Israel either, does Chris Ward, which I'd give him props for, actually, if he didn't, in the next breath, say that he didn't support sanctions against Israel either, and when asked why, he could only sulkily snap, because I don't. Well, how many more innocent people need to die, in which case, before you choose to change your mind, then, and place sanctions on Israel, in which case? When confronted about the news of the UN report that came out on the 20th of June, I presume the one being spoken about here is the one that came from the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, saying countries selling arms to Israel could be complicit in war crimes, he was looking around, fidgeting, a bit uncomfortable, clearly wanting to be anywhere but where he was. But then his claim to want to stop weapons being exported fell to pieces, as this claim then ended up exposing just how little he knows about the constituency he is standing in, how little he is bothered actually to find out about. And when no answer to that came, he scuttled off as fast as his little legs could carry him. He was asked about the L3 Harris factory in Brighton, which makes parts for the F-35 jets the IDF use, and was asked what they make there. Did he know what was made in that factory? It was a major arms manufacturer in your constituency. You'd imagine you'd know if they made anything contentious. Ward was under the impression the local council had put a stop to it, making me wonder what on earth he thinks the role of local councils is if he thinks they have so much power. But it might come as a shock to him to learn actually they have no say over what the factory can actually manufacture. And when asked specifically if he knew what was being made in that factory that made the place, as argued by the UN, as potentially complicit in genocide, Chris Ward didn't have a Scooby. He didn't know, but said as much in a manner where he knew he was about to be told exactly what they make there and getting the exact response he deserved, by having his reasons for standing in a constituency he knows nothing about, evidently, questioned. Why are you standing here if you know so little? He just kept rabbiting on about the council and requirements for planning permission. What he was going on about, what he was talking about, was a planning application by L3 Harris to retain a temporary extension they had built that had been erected and that they had lost. It has nothing whatsoever to do with what the factory actually makes, which is what he was being asked about. And he was asked pointedly, do you know what the arms factory in our city currently makes? And he could only come back with, not specifically, no. He wasn't interested in finding out either, as at this point he decided to run for shelter in the Labour Party office, where on his way through the doors he was told they make the bomb release cradles for F-35s. The means for dropping bombs from Israeli F-35 jets are made in this country, in Brighton, and Chris Ward, their wannabe Labour MP, didn't know that, and clearly didn't care to know either, as he ran away, his campaign supporters locking themselves in afterwards. It was one of the most standout pieces of footage of this general election campaign for me, because nothing sums up Starmer's Labour and the candidates he's putting forward like this did. Because that there is, I have no doubt, a scene being replicated up and down the country as completely unsuitable, ill-informed candidates who more often than not are not local, who are being imposed in areas Labour figures it can win anyway no matter who it puts up, not to represent local people as decent local MPs, but just as an exercise to get certain people into Parliament who will support Keir Starmer in whatever the hell he wants to do. This video footage should serve as a warning for anyone in Labour-leaning areas to just think long and hard about who exactly it is standing for Labour in your area, what they are like, who they are they local? Did your local Labour Party get a say in selecting them? Because if they have just been parachuted in from elsewhere, then they have in all likelihood zero intention of representing you, meeting your local needs, rolling their eyes at any notion that that is what they are there for, when their election means instead of representing you, they'll be representing Starmer and Starmer alone. Chris Ward himself, for example, is literally a former aide and advisor to Keir Starmer, and someone Starmer apparently requested be handed a seat, and the seat he got handed was that of Progressive Labour MP Lloyd Russell-Moyle, another of the left-wing socialist campaign group of MPs who had a complaint ever so conveniently made about him just before candidacies were cut off. So he was another member of that group that Starmer has conveniently been able to get rid of him, and resulting in his suspension and inability to stand as the MP for Brighton, Kemp Town and Peacehaven going forwards into this election. If the allegation that Starmer requested a seat for his mate Ward and time was all but up to announce candidates, a cynic might think Russell Moyle was sidelined to make room for him. The timing really was awfully convenient after all. As for the sort of person Ward is, author and former Corbyn speechwriter Alex Nuns put out a rather informative tweet about that. See what you think about this allegation. My friend worked under Chris Ward, Starmer's advisor, who's being imposed as a candidate in Brighton. My friend alleges Ward basically bullied me out of the job. It was unrelenting, gaslighting, passive-aggressive, he says. When he told Ward he was disabled, Ward ramped it up. Well, in this instance, perhaps the people of Brighton are onto him. Already he has struggled in his campaign with so many local members disgusted they've had this Starmer stooge imposed on them instead of the popular Russell Moyle. And this has been reiterated since in a recent article in Bloomberg that names Ward as one of a number of candidates in a number of Labour-held seats that Labour may well lose. And that is despite Lloyd Russell-Moyle having left a majority of just over 8,000. A strong, growing campaign behind Green Party candidate Elaine Hills means this seat could well be an unexpected bonus for the Green Party come Thursday night. At any rate, this video footage underlines the fact that when Starmer and Labour shadow ministers crop up on TV and talk about high-quality candidates, this footage is proof, to my mind, that they're having a laugh at all of our expenses, and this is nothing more than a naked power grab and consolidation of Starmer's position at the top of the Labour Party. And actually, that is literally all that matters to Labour right now. Local representation in seats across the country looks set to go south if you elect Labour, and the bigger Starmer's majority, the worse that picture is going to end up being. I made a video the other day about Labour names set to be casualties in other constituencies not prepared to be taken for granted by Starmer's Labour. Names to watch out for on Thursday night for definite. You can find out all about that in this video recommendation here, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.